My name is Matodzi Amisi, and I am a senior M&E technical asset at Clear AA, which is one of the centers, one of the 6 centers globally that's focused on evaluation and supporting evaluation capacity building. So I work with different governments in Anglophone Africa if they are interested in doing evaluation or in just promoting evaluation, them to do evaluation of their programs, developing systems to enable them to evaluate their programs and to systematize evaluation in their ministries. And then also there's another line of work that focuses on parliamentary work that really works with parliaments to encourage them to use evidence in their oversight function and different parliamentary work that they do. South Africa, I think government itself has taken center stage in terms of evaluation. The establishment of DPME, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, in 2009, 2010, was quite an important milestone, because you then have a center of government ministry that's really coordinating the national evaluation system for the country, and really building on the work that had been done previously by the Public Service Commission, for example, working directly with Parliament, also evaluating programs and reporting to Parliament. And so government has really taken center stage and really embedded the notion of evaluating programs, particularly big government programs. And I think over the past 5 years, that work has also been trickling down to lower levels of government, so to provincial government and to, and I think we were having conversations with colleagues from DPME, and they want to take that work also to local government, really trying to integrate evaluations with existing public service management systems in those spheres of government. And that's within government, and then there's, all sorts of other things that are happening with civil society organizations. There's other things that are happening in other sectors outside of government. And I have to just reflect on the work that has been done with DPME, because with the work that has been done in DPME, you can actually see the whole of their work. And I think there are other sectors, obviously, that seems to be more active than others. You've got sectors like social development and education, and human settlements that have been really active in doing evaluation and setting up systems within their own ministries. And so in those departments or ministries, obviously there's a lot more activity going on. They're doing a lot more evaluation, but there also are departments with really big programs within government. The ministries, obviously, that are commissioning the evaluations are involved, and we have a lot of South African evaluators that are doing evaluation. And this is where this notion of indigenous becomes quite interesting, which is the subject that you are interested in, because is indigenous about nativity, like where you were born? Is it about race, in a case like South Africa, where race is quite an important identifier? Is it an issue about where you live, no matter where you were born? And it's the same question that I think one has when we're talking about local evaluator. Who's a local evaluator and who's a foreign evaluator? Because is an American-born evaluator who is now based in South Africa a local evaluator or not? So I think, yeah, that's an interesting thing in terms of like the question you're asking about who's involved typically in that, because I think the answer is that you have South African evaluators, South African-based evaluators evaluating these programs. Things matter in South Africa politically generally, and that's because of the history of the country. They matter because they are indicators of privilege and also inequality between different people. And so who gets access to opportunities to evaluate programs and which programs you know, if it's still defined by race, of course, then it becomes politically a difficult issue. So it does matter because of the history of the country, but it probably wouldn't matter in another country. But in South Africa, it's still an issue. And there's still a lot of conversations about how do you transform the knowledge production space, because it's not just about evaluation, it's also in research. And I think in a way, it's not just a nice to have. It's not just, well, you know, it would be great to see a more representativity in evaluation space, but it's also an issue around whose lens we use to make sense of the lived reality of majority of the population that are often studied. Because whether you're looking at government programs, because of the history of the country, the government programs are most likely to be targeting certain communities. But those communities themselves are not necessarily the ones who give voice to their experiences. It is researchers with different life experiences and privileges who then, with their lens, try and interpret what they're observing in communities. And in some cases, it has contributed to pathologizing communities, where people are doing things that they present themselves in many other communities, but because they are the subject of evaluation or the subject of research, we then present it as if it's unique and it's different, but actually it's not different. And so I think that's where then this issue about race and privilege then matters in evaluation space and in knowledge, in how knowledge is produced. So to what extent is changing? I think that government has made efforts to change it. There were changes within DPME, for example, in how government was procuring evaluations. And that was an attempt to deal with that, because I think people recognize that was a problem, because then you only have one voice being heard in the policy-making space on what changes needs to be made. And the effectiveness of programs is being measured and determined by one group. So that was an issue that was picked up, but I'm not too sure to what extent it's changing, because I think anyone who's ever worked on anything that's trying to transform any social issues recognize that these things are difficult to change, because in a way, you know, you have had years of kind of skewed procurement that privileged certain people and gave certain people opportunities to really perfect their art. Maybe not perfect seems like, you know, but to really try different things and test different things, and now they have all this expertise. And then when you're trying to change it, at the same time, government still require people with certain level of experience. You know, it still asks, you know, that you have had so many years of experience, you have done so many number of evaluations. And so I think it is still difficult to transform, but I think the conversation is happening and happening more strongly. And I think that there's positive signs that this is possible.